You can focus the option to do the right thing, but.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the staff is going. Perfect,
Excellent.
Perfect timing.
perfect. No problem. Great. Everyone's here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's go and get started with the Templeton Community Services District Parks and Recreation or Youth Committee meeting. Let's go ahead and do roll call, please.
Bardonish,
Here.
Minsky,
Here.
and Tyrone.
Yes, here.
Great. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the agenda. Waste management update.
Okay, well, Jessica's kind of have a rolling start into this item. Actually, Jessica and Josh are here from Waste Management
Thank you for coming.
today, and as hopefully the committee remembers, we have a franchise agreement with Waste Management to provide services in Templeton, and Jessica's gonna provide an update. I did include, just because it was convenient, and I didn't have any other attachments. We get monthly reports from Waste Management, and you might have seen that in the packet.
Should I go to the podium or?
Yes.
Okay.
For all the folks
Yeah.
watching from home.
For the video.
Well, hello, everyone. I've met most of you in this room. For those of you that I haven't, my name is Jessica McGinnis. I am the public sector representative for our franchise area here in Templeton. And I came over from Midstate Solid Waste before it was acquired by Waste Management in 2023. I had worked for Midstate for about 5 years before the acquisition. So I'm happy to be on this waste management team. I love the city of Templeton. We continue to be proud to serve this area and do what we can for our community. So I just wanted to do a little recap here as far as some recent events that we've done. Every year in the spring, we hold our spring cleanup event for our residential curbside customers. We also hold a free compost giveaway where customers can come to our transfer station on Ramada Drive and pick up a free yard of compost. This year in April, we gave away over 25,000 pounds of compost to our residents. Estimated that a yard of compost is equivalent to about 1,200 pounds each yard. So just a great participation level, probably one of the biggest that we've had in years past. So it's really great. Also on our curbside cleanup, we were able to dispose of 10,760 pounds of extra waste from our residential customers. And that would equate to 5.38 tons of material that we removed. Waste Management continues to participate in things that are both contractual and non-contractual in our community. And I just wanted to highlight some of the events and some of the partnerships that we have here in our wonderful town of Templeton. So we are doing in-kind services as well as monetary donations for great places like the Templeton Recreation Foundation. We were named the biggest sponsor in 2024 from Recreation Department, which was an honor, and we are proud to continue to support them and partner in many events. This year was our first Earth Day event, and Mel and I were able to really share some neat things with the community, and we had a great time with the people that showed up. We also support the Templeton Education Foundation doing sponsorships for Templeton football. This is a continued sponsorship that we have carried over since the acquisition back with Midstate Solid Waste, and we are proud to support the Education Foundation. We are also leadership circle members of the Templeton Paso Chamber of Commerce, and we continue to do things like supporting the concerts in the park and many other events that are put on by the chamber. This year for Concerts in the Park, we are going to do a WM night where we're gonna have a trash truck for the community. We're gonna do a pop-up sharing recycling information. It is going to be a great event for the kids. I can't tell you how excited the kids get to be able to crawl up and sit in a trash truck. So we look forward to doing that in the community and just keeping that involvement present. We also are proud to support, again, the 4th of July parade being the biggest celebration
IWA has produced this sort of, at least the report for Templeton. I have not received one previously.
Cool.
So since we had it, we
Yeah.
wanted to provide it to you, and then again, from that link, if you're wanna get your hands dirty, from that link that shows the single page report for Templeton, there's a link on the bottom that takes you to the IWMA annual report, and that would be for all the jurisdictions that are part of IWMA, which is as of right now, countywide. Everything all the jurisdictions within the county that have waste authority, waste management responsibilities are part of IWMA. So so this page here is Templeton specific, and if you scroll down to the bottom, that's where you find the
Yeah.
link that takes you to the bigger report. That's.
And that's where you were talking
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
Josh, that we're pretty compliant.
Yes.
Yeah, and we did have, I mean, the IWMA executive director did, make an appearance before this committee last fall.
Yeah.
And kind of just talked about in general how he felt like both Templeton and the county were really strong. There weren't, great concerns about our rates of recycling and whatnot, but just to keep in mind, I think we expect that, as Cal Recycle continues through its implementation of 1383, there will be tighter and tighter expectations, the standards go from education to enforcement. And so you mentioned about, do I have to take garbage out of, do I have to separate my recyclables and organics? And the answer is yes, and eventually there'll be consequences if you don't. I don't know how soon that'll happen, but under 1383, all residential customers have to be provided with multiple containers. And if you don't use them, you still can't have like organics in your garbage. You can be a home composter and compost at home, or have another source, maybe feed chickens or goats or anything that Jessica has. But everybody else, you cannot put your organics in the black can. Because that is not sorted. That goes to the landfill directly. It's not going to in this county, we don't operate like Dirty Murphs where all that garbage is being sorted out.
And the organics, that includes the lawn trimmings and all that.
There we go. The old green waste, the term of the past, plus all food waste, and then there's a few other things as well.
So if you have like a chicken box of, or a pizza box that's soiled with grease and everything, that also goes to organic.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Food soiled paper, yeah.
Oh, okay.
My 12-year-old.
Coffee filter.
I didn't know that, he knew that, so he heard that in
So if you-
school.
For coffee, just take the whole filter in coffee and put it right in the organic.
So if it's like a, plastic bag that the food was wrapped in, does that go in there or is it
So not plastic, but
Oh,
food soiled
okay.
paper.
paper?
Yeah,
Okay.
so napkins, paper plates, the pizza boxes, coffee filters, those types of materials, but plastics are still unfortunately compostable. Even those that say compostable or biodegradable cannot go in the green bin.
Okay.
That actually cause problems.
And I think maybe your last bill or is the next one coming up as a new flyer from that.
In your June statements, there's an
Oh.
IWMA recycling sorting guide for all three waste streams. And
Oh.
the billing cycle just so happened to be June, July for Templeton residential. So you'll be seeing those in the next week. And it's been really successful in some of our other service areas like Atascadero and SLO County. A lot of great feedback and customer interaction, so.
I don't have anything else to report from IWMA. It was just want to make sure you had an opportunity to review that.
Okay,
That report that they put
Yeah,
together.
no, this is good. It's good. Glad to see that it's working. Any other?
No.
One thing is, before I forget, and I think it just goes back to our first item, is just real quick, I think we were gonna work with waste management in terms of picking up, when we have clutter to cash, and then it used to be that the week after that they did the pickup.
Yes,
And so we're gonna maybe try to work with them to.
Already done. It's
Yeah.
already
Get that, okay, perfect.
Yep.
I'll set up so we get that timing right. Perfect.
Oh, going back to the CRV, if we put that into the blue container, will you guys be able to redeem that cash, or is that just lost?
So if you put it in your blue container, it's gonna be treated just like the other recyclables where it's sorted, baled, brought to another facility where it's processed for recycling.
Okay, but you guys aren't able to okay.
We're not, yeah.
Okay.
Great, thank you, you guys
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next item is Everest Park Improvement Plan update. Keeps going.
Good time to run away.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next year, Josh.
Hopefully sooner. I love it here.
He's like a regional person, so,
I heard like 3 hours.
Tehachapi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But he was involved with the transition, and
Yes,
I haven't dealt with him much since. So, we included a couple of items here, I think for the benefit of the committee, a couple of the committee members, may not have seen the Everest Park quote unquote plans, the improvement plans. It might make sense to, okay, I'll just, I think, what Lori and I kind of talked about just a little bit ago is maybe we start with just a brief overview of what is envisioned for Everest Park. And then we can go on to the kind of where we sit right now and some of the challenges, so, you've got to make this smaller again. And then you tell me where you want to go, Lori, and I'll try to get there.
Sure. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to see that. To get a basic overview, there's not a whole lot of sheets that have everything on them. Because our Everest Park is quite a big park. It's a multi-use existing park down kind of next to the Salinas River off Gibson Road. So when we initially started this project, or staff started this project years ago, the whole idea was to create the primary items were to create a path loop around the park and to add a playground. And to do some improvements for ADA access. The original approach was that we would have our ADA parking spots right next, basically where they are now, right at the entrance there, where Jeff is pointing right now. And we would do some improvements and improve those ramps and different walkways to be now like concrete and meeting the more recent requirements for accessibility. When we were going through the process with the county, they actually said, you know what, you guys actually need to provide ADA access all the way from the right of way, which is all the way up at Gibson. So I don't know if you guys have attended this or went to this park, but as you enter into the park, it's quite a steep entrance and narrow, constrained. And so there's a lot of back and forth with the county about the addition of this accessible walkway, and there was some discussion among staff that we wanted it a certain width so that two parties could cross each other with like strollers or things like that. So with that added width in the driveway, we actually have to shift the driveway as well and widen it so that we have a full 24 feet in that driveway. So with those changes, an additional pavement and some different back and forth. So the county has come back and asked us to do additional things when it comes to drainage and what they call the post-construction requirements. So if you add any impervious area on a site that exceeds a certain amount, which is 2,500 square feet, you actually have to do additional things to deal with that drainage and the potential pollution that would come off of those impervious areas. So there's a whole set of requirements that are triggered after you add 2,500 square feet of impervious area. So that's where we found ourselves. And originally there wasn't an expectation that this would be a requirement. And so there's also not only the kind of treatment of the dirty water that comes off of those impervious areas, but also the flood control aspect. So you have to have enough basin or some sort of way to handle the water from the larger storms. And so in the back and forth with the county, they basically said, okay, now you have to provide treatment in the parking lot. So we ended up finding a solution that's it's like a small, planter, box that can be like prefabricated and brought in, and it's very, you know, kind of small and will fit in, for, you know, not too much money. But then we had this back and forth with them about the basin that's out there, at Evers Park. And so the basin that's basically behind all the fields, behind a fence, nobody really sees it. Come to find out through looking through previous documents, we actually didn't have an accurate calculation of the size of that basin. So some of the aerial or, you know, zoomed out ones will show a little bit of that basin. And so in this last iteration and last comment period with the county, they basically said, you need to prove to us that you have an adequate amount of volume in that basin to account for this additional runoff that we're creating with these additional spaces, which they didn't say, you know, straight out, you have to improve it. They said, just show us that you have enough. And so what we, in the last board meeting, we went through a budget adjustment to get some funds to be able to survey that basin and to be able to understand what we really have out there. Because unfortunately, the paperwork that we had going back to like 2007, something like that, with the Walls Group, didn't show an accurate depiction and reflect what's actually going on out there. So that's where we are right now, waiting for the engineers. I believe it's this week they were going to be getting access to go out there. I don't know if they've reached out to our people to get out there, but they sometimes do this with drones. And so it can be a quick thing. They fly it with a drone and then they get all that information downloaded and they can give us a yes or a no if this basin is big enough. If it's not big enough, we have this additional challenge that we're looking at of possibly having to improve it. And that could be another cost to this project that's already seen a lot of hiccups with different costs. And it's not only that, you know, the widening and the walkway is the issue, it's that construction and, you know, the costs of construction has gone up so much since the initial, you know, beginning of this project, that the estimate that we received at sort of the beginning of when we were approaching it is basically not even close anymore. And so so we're trying to do some what I would call value engineering, and we'll continue to do that through this project as we approach construction to see, you know, if we can save on certain things, because obviously the more time we're spending on processing it through the county, the more we're spending kind of on the design and preparation side instead of on the construction side. So that's kind of taken away from those things. So there's some items we actually had to kind of remove from the scope in the process, including the fancy drinking fountain. We only will be able to install a portion of the playground. There's a kind of a hill that has a slide,
Also, can't even.
but the portion in the flat area will not be able to be included
Why?
in the base scope. So that would have to sort of
Why?
come later on.
Because of money?
Yeah, I mean, that's our assumption that we're not gonna have
I
enough.
thought that was like somebody donated their money for that.
No, we got a grant to help cover the cost.
Of the playground, I thought they donated.
I think someone donated like $10,000 toward the cost, but that's
Not
maybe gonna pay for an element.
Yeah, and then I believe the grant also covers part of the walkway of the playground. And so, you know, obviously as we, we're gonna need it.
We've run into a lot of challenges going through the permitting process, and some of it is our own doing, in that we've made improvements to this park that were not permitted. And what the county's doing is they're going back through their records and saying, well, show us the permit for this or that. For example, this backstop here that the count that's sometimes called Field 2 was apparently built without a permit. So
Yeah, so we're still.
we're still
have
trying to
work-
battling about how do we resolve that? Do we,
They might do like, hey, you need to come back through
And
get a permit for this and show us how you built it. So I mean, this has happened. When there's illegal construction, they basically say, well, you have to get a permit, you know, after the fact and show us what it's built out of, and then we kind of make it right. I don't know what they're gonna say. We're directing our people to basically say coordinate with the Templeton Community Services District, and we'll talk to them offline and see what we can do about it. But, you know, that's the thing, is when you submit a permit for a particular property, they look into everything on the property, storage, buildings, if they're within the right, you know, approved size, and, you know, if everything's within the, obviously the property lines, and drainage and the whole 9 yards. So we were hopeful that it was such a kind of minor thing, because we're not doing much. We're kind of working with the grades and putting the walkway within, you know, where's a logical location, playground as well. But we are disturbing things, and we are adding some impervious areas, so we just have to push through and get them the answers they want. So there are just a few you know, if we want to jump to the comments, there's a few items that we can talk about. Some of it's very building code-esque, I'll say, but you know, as far as the so there's these, you know, fancy walls that we have to install now for this walkway coming down the hill. And so there are these requirements that when you do a structural wall that is designed by a structural engineer, that you actually have what are called special inspections. So there's a lot of back and forth about these special inspections and who's going to be doing them, and if that person's required.
That's a
So
retaining wall.
yes, so it's any retaining wall that exceeds 4 feet and has, you know, is basically designed with rebar and all that. There actually has to be somebody there to confirm, okay, they're building it according to my design that I signed off on. So those are structural.
I thought, with the retaining wall, we were allowed to kind of, and not do the fancy with the rebars and things like that. I thought they.
Well, there is gonna be that,
The cost.
part of it is still gonna be the fancy walls,
Wow.
because it's.
just the section up by the parking lot, between the
Parking lot.
parking lot and the exit or the entry to the park, because yeah, well, when we had the ADA walkway, it was very constrained there, because you've got multiple slopes. And sort of in order to accommodate that ADA walkway, the walkway sits up quite a bit higher than the driveway. And then to retain the hillside behind it, the wall had to get quite a bit higher. The original design was for an at grade, I'll call it, for the existing grade walkway, not an ADA compliant walkway. And that didn't require this as much of an extensive.
Yeah, ADA walkways can't have a greater than 2% slope across. And then as you go down the hill, they can't be greater than like 8%. And so there's ways that you go like a ramp and then a, you know, landing and then a ramp. So you see them, you know, kind of all over the place now. So there are still going to be these fancier walls that will require the rebar. There's
Fancy construction, not necessarily fancy
Yeah,
decorative.
I know, yeah. You will, which, and you can't, yeah.
Yeah, big wall, might be fancy.
They're
decorative.
expensive, but no one's gonna notice.
Yeah,
This
so-
is nothing, it doesn't add anything to the, you know, for the kids, you know?
exactly. I mean, that's kind of
So-
where we've ended up on this project, is
It
it's
just-
really an access project after
Yeah,
it's all done.
so we're spending all our money, or a lot of it, on items that aren't gonna add any value to our residents in terms of usage. And so, I mean, and when we originally talked about it, obviously we know that we had a limited fund, like I think now is $1 million or something we have, plus the grant, 1
Plus the green.
plus the grant, but what is that gonna get us? And I don't even think. in
I
terms
mean,
of
I
priorities
will
that-
argue as a parent that's using the facility, it's very difficult to get in and out with your children when it's a soccer Saturday or a very, you know, busy event, when and grandparents are having to walk all the way from Gibson. So it will, I think it will be a very appreciated thing, but I agree with you.
I don't even think we're gonna have enough money to do that kind of stuff. I mean, especially if we have to fix the basin part of it, that might, money. we have
Yeah,
to
I
put
think
money
we
there.
might have to have a reconvene.
Yes.
If there is this issue with the basin and a need to expand it, and we'll need to talk to, people that do that kind of work to see how much it's gonna cost, and if it's not working, we're
We
gonna
need to
have to
come back to the
revisit and
board, I think.
see.
Yeah, we may, right now, we're still missing information. In other words, the request of the county was to analyze the basin and demonstrate we had adequate storage for water. The problem was the basin was not constructed to the plans, and so again, back 25 years ago or more.
Or somehow we never
And-
got
and then-
accurate.
Yeah,
final-
and then we added the second softball field in that second half of the park without a permit, so that doesn't match the county's records. And so that's why we can't rely on the information that was submitted years ago. So
There's a little bit of both
yeah,
going.
there's a little bit right now, like a little pause. Are we gonna meet this number or not? Because without doing without analyzing it, we don't know. I will say from the perspective of the ADA issue, basically what the county is saying is you can't do anything at the park without fixing ADA access. So we're gonna spend the bulk of this money getting ADA access from Gibson Street to the facility. And you can't
And
add a
also
slide, you
the
can't
parking
add,
lot down to the park itself.
well, that was always part of the
We
plan,
need to
but.
bring this up because once you put in a retaining wall, it's gonna get tagged. That's gonna happen.
Yeah, maintenance, yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna, take a lot to keep it.
We can do public art.
Huh?
We'll do some public art on it and see what we can do.
Maybe.
We'll tag it
I
first.
wouldn't discount the value of having a safe entrance to that park, because on soccer practice times or
Yeah,
Saturdays,
It's not a good.
there's not a safe entrance.
Yeah, right now, if you go there, the big problem is ignoring ADA just for a moment, because it's
yeah.
a very legitimate issue, but ignoring it for a moment, there isn't a pedestrian walkway. And there's not enough parking in the park to accommodate all the users, and so half or more on a busy Saturday are parked on the street. And then the pedestrians are sharing the driveway with cars, there's not enough room. If two cars are going by, there's not enough room for a parent in a stroller or a parent in a wagon. Someone has to kind of stop, so it's a
There's
sketchy kind
like
of.
another lot off to, next to the parking lot. Is that part of the park or is it,
We lease that space,
or you lease it?
don't we?
The dirt lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, dirt lot.
Parking lot, that is,
It's a railroad.
it's railroad property.
Oh,
Or we.
Yeah, but we use it.
With permission.
okay.
Yeah,
And as far as
lots of
the,
permission.
as far as the runoff, did you contact Union Pacific to see if they would let you, let the runoff go through their right of way or? Because it's really far away from. the
Working with the railroads and Union Pacific is very difficult. I think we should have tried to avoid that at all costs. I think we have additional space back in that area. If for some reason we do need to expand.
Well, I was thinking about the water runoff, that you could just run it into their property.
Yeah, the
Oh,
problem is
you
it
know
doesn't- it's not
what?
the
Yeah,
local end of
they
the
wouldn't,
park.
because it's not our property, the county would say no.
Yeah,
It
The other
has
thing,
to be within the same parcel, that you're, routing your own drainage and storage.
Oh,
You have to kind of, check it,
Solve your own
check it
problem.
before it goes on. Check your own runoff before it goes to the next parcel, so. I did want to talk about the drop-off area. I don't know if we discussed that. Staff had the idea,
Wow.
because of our issue with all these people having access, that we actually reserve this kind of square area right where Jeff is pointing. It's approximately 2 parking spaces wide, and have it just be a drop-off area for those high volume times where we have bollards that people can't park there. And then, folks would kind of go through the loop, drop off, kids or, elderly or whatever needs to happen, and then continue on and park wherever they need to, because in past, that area gets congested, especially if people are parking right there.
We would
And so-
still be able to meet whatever ADA spot requirement.
Yeah, so the other 3, we haven't been questioned on having just 3, that's been fine through this point with the county. So those have been, approved. I guess it would be up to if we wanted to add additional ones for any particular reason, but that whole area is actually being, cut out, the asphalt, and it's being replaced with concrete, because that's the easiest way to get the grade they require for the accessibility, so. So, you know, minimizing how much we have to cut out and replace will help with the costs as well. And then that rectangle just to the south of that area will be our biofiltration box. And so it's also good if we don't have a whole lot of people or, you know, people parked right next to where that drainage is gonna go, because that's the low point of the parking lot. And so then the water from the biofiltration then kind of goes up along the northern part of the park, through swales, and then eventually gets to the basin that we've been referring to, so. So that's kind of the biggest item I see on the list right now. We still have a couple of those items to get through on some details of, you know, whatever the county is needing.
Some of it's just a matter of getting the proper form filled out and assigned by the
Yeah,
right
some were
people and things like that. They're just kind of ticky-tack items.
What's the issue with the soil report that they seem to have an issue with?
So this is something that I think is kind of a valid thing, but they, so they're talking about this need to have people come for these special inspections, so you'd have your structural engineer and you'd also have soils engineer involved in that. Well, the company that did do the soils report for our project happens to not be local, because MIG and, BKF does have some local people, but MIG contracted with the soils engineering company that isn't local, so the county's not familiar with them, so they want to go through a process of like
Validating their
screening
credentials?
them, validating them, which I think is just like a thing. But the challenge and the overall challenge with, and one of the lessons I think people are showing that they're willing to make it right, then you
Yeah.
can, then you tend to be like, okay, I'll take a break and we'll work this out. And you say, you know, by the time you final the permit that you originally wanted to come in for, you're always also gonna have to deal with all the rest of these items. So we're not gonna let you, you know, occupy or, you
Right.
know, final or, you know, move forward. Finishing a project until you deal with all those other things. So that might be a route that we could take with them. Next, like, it's fine. I doubt that, but so, yeah, so we just have some outstanding issues. Mel, did you wanna talk about, since we're on the subject, the idea of having the drinking fountain attached to bathrooms and getting that maybe sponsored?
Yes, so we did lose, you know, the ability to build like a $15,000 drinking fountain. It's very sad to me, but part of that was because we were going to put it in a place where we'd have to draw the water lines to meet where the drinking fountain currently wasn't gonna work, but we do have water, you know, at the bathrooms, right? So if we can put a fountain between the two restroom entry doors, right? There's just a big flat empty wall and it's shaded. It's in a bit of like a, I don't know, like a covered area all along the snack bar. We already have the water lines right there and it's likely we could get some sort of a grant or some sort of a sponsorship to pay for sort of a water filtration system there, water bottle filler. So,
Well, that's IWMA.
and I think IWMA has one, yeah, so, I don't know.
I think we probably, rather than a grant and having to manage another grant.
Fair.
to
I
have
think this is
some
a small internal.
sponsorship. A sponsorship
Yeah.
would be excellent.
Yeah.
Small,
This is,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so if, you know, a grant that's not a large amount of
No.
management.
No, it's not like a state level,
yeah.
yeah, this is like a small internal kind of,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they have an annual amount of money.
Yeah,
that they
we've
set
gotten
aside.
some cost estimates and the one
It's like
without
s-
I think
filtration
it's
was
the-
about 10,000, so if
Yeah.
we went without filtration, obviously, there's that, and then you have to like replace filters.
This one, I think is
because-
like $10,000 matching grant, up to 10,000 matching grant.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be amazing.
yeah.
So something like that, and looking at like, you know, Justin has a grant as well, whatever the wonderful company. Has a grant that we might be eligible for as well, so I can apply for that next season. But, you know,
Yeah, there was another item that is coming up on the budget, and I don't know if it's been discussed about the remodeling of the bathrooms. And so if we were gonna be messing around in the bathrooms, it might make sense to kind of try to do at least like stub out for the plumbing. that
yeah, I think it
effort.
depends on the extent of the work they wanna do in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
As far as that aligning, but I think you're right, if we're going to be, you know, if it's just slapping a coat of paint, I think it might be, you know,
Too
easier to paint
disruptive.
everything all at once, isn't it, right? Than to paint and then do a project and have to repaint, so, we might as well, exactly, save a bucket. So we might as well, right? And it's just a matter of getting, you know, all the things to line up at the same time, cause even right now, when Evers is in operation, as of right now, we're operating without a water fountain. Right? I mean, they come to the snack bar if it's open, right? And thankfully, we're in this like day and age where everybody kind of carries water around and all of that, but ideally, we, you know, being a water
Well,
district,
yeah,
provide
yeah.
water
There
to.
was actually a comment here, because we had put that we're gonna remove. There is a water fountain out there. We've disconnected it.
We've disconnected it.
We've discovered that it was connected to the irrigation plumbing.
Yeah,
So for many years there, although, you know, it's all the same water except.
Templeton's been drinking from the hose since the night.
But we
But-
also decided that we wanted to put some, it was like nutrients or chemicals within the irrigation lines to help with the, you know,
Castor oil.
Yeah.
Restoring-
Yeah.
restoring the systems. And so since that was going to be happening, the utilities guys realized, oh.
We
this
definitely
is actually
cannot have them connected.
So we're keeping it there because the county actually says that with this use for this park use, you do have to have
Right.
a water fountain. So we're keeping it there for them. But ideally, we would be able to get this other
Exactly.
things sponsored, so it wouldn't have to go into the cost of this.
They don't care if
Yeah,
it's
let's-
there
let's use.
functional or not.
What, and at this point,
Oh,
what
and
they
they'll
don't.
come and tell,
Ask for
we will see. There's a lot of, we're just trying to get it in within a certain budget and not that we don't want these things, we obviously want the playground, we obviously want this, reasonable, drinking fountain. But it's just that, the cost of everything is just exploding right now, so, those are gonna be future items. So there's, even on the plans, we have these things called add alternatives. Where if we find out that, hey, it's not that expensive to do concrete sidewalk, then we can actually do more concrete sidewalk. But if it's, what we call the base bid is already at our max, then we won't be able to add those items that are the would be nices. So that includes, the pathway to the playground will be concrete. But the complete loop will not be paved concrete, it will be done in, DG.
It's likely to be DG, yeah.
Which will still be nice, but it won't be what's considered accessible because,
Oh, that's that comment about like, how are you maintaining the walkway if you have DG and.
yeah, so our comment back to that is it's the whole
They're
loop,
separate.
the whole loop is not going to be considered accessible. Even though somebody in a wheelchair that has a disability could probably manage it, no problem. It's just technically, it's not gonna have that exact 2% slope and, meet all of those regulations. There could be a project in future where we decide to pave it, when more funds become available, so. That's the thing, we're trying to set it up where in future, if funding becomes available, an additional phase that we can add these things. But I actually like walking on DG more than I like walking on paved because it's better on the knees, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. If you guys have any questions at any time about, feel free to reach out to me, I can chat with you about it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So we do have, these various comments to respond back to, and we're waiting really on some of this technical report
Yeah.
to package this back up and get it back to the county.
And then I think at some point we gotta bring it back to the board and just talk
Yeah,
about
well, we
the
need to-
whole,
well, we
all
need to
these
figure-
changes.
Well, we'll need to figure out, do we have a permittable set yet?
Yeah.
Are we ready to go out to bid, and what's gonna be the bid, at that point, we'll ask MIG to update the construction cost estimates, and
Yeah.
then you'll have the best information available to make a decision about moving forward. Even with those cost estimates, that's all they are, until you have an actual bid from a contractor that's got bid bonds and it's signed and everything else, you don't know, we won't know what it costs to build it. You can have construction cost estimates, the bids can still come back 50% more.
Alright.
I'm
Thank
hoping
you.
that doesn't happen, but
Okay, next item, outreach and marketing efforts. So this is, I think, we talked a little bit about this before, so is this?
yeah, so what we thought so this came up at your last meeting in terms of how do our residents know about what programs exist? And so, we were gonna walk you through how we use the website and where else we market our materials. We're having some technical trouble lately on this system.
Welcome to the Parks and Recreation tab. So most of what we do, we put into these little, sub tabs, right? So Concerts in the Park starts June 11th, very exciting. When we have, Concerts in the Park is kind of rolled out in phases, right? So at the very beginning, we're looking for vendors and sponsors, so we'll have the vendor and sponsor application up. Now those have been set and we don't want to advertise that anymore, so we put the actual flyer up. And then, as you go down, you kind of get toward the old events, but I don't want to kind of get rid of them, right? Because we still want to honor, like, for example, Live in the Screen, the people who won the awards, so. Or Monster Skate, which is the greatest thing that ever happened. Parks and facilities, so we don't allow, this website would allow, but we don't. We've disabled the ability to rent them online, because it's just another calendar to manage, and often It's easier for us to manage it in-house than it is to manage it on the website. But we have the facility rental applications and the brochure and all of that, and we have under the listing of parks. If I can get back to where I was, you can see, all the facilities that are available, and when you click on them, it'll actually say like Evers right now is closed, right? So it'll be closed for field maintenance through July 4th. It's the same thing, it says the same thing up at, on the Bethel site, Tom German, park. And then-
Now,
yes,
quick
ma'am.
question, just, do you want questions at the end, or can I,
Whenever,
okay,
fire away.
events, why, I noticed Beer Run wasn't on there.
That is a good question, why the beer run wasn't on there.
It's on the
It's
homepage.
It's on the homepage, so if you,
Homepage and on.
yes, I think I just didn't upload it on there. Sometimes the beer run is a funny one, cause it's it's rec department and foundation. So it's up on the foundation page and it's up on
It's up on the.
the
YouTube
homepage. And it's up on our rec, yes, which I was gonna go to next, because we do drive a lot of traffic towards
Yeah.
those, right? So, just working through here, like we have a arts and crafts club starting this summer, just announced, very exciting. So Kendra Bowling's gonna come out and do this arts and crafts club. It's like our big class that we have. Same thing with skate park. We just announced actually earlier today, the scoot camp and skate camp. And both of these are links, so you can link them, and I'll just take you there now because they go to our rec page. Go
Were
ahead.
those there like 4 hours ago?
Probably not.
Okay.
Did I find out like 3 hours ago that we were gonna do this? Yes, I did. And so I was sure to upload them.
4
It was
hours
pretty
ago,
empty.
we were not there.
I don't know what you're talking about. And then when you go to, the sports programs, basically everything goes to our sports website, right? So it's got the general information, but when you need, the rest of it, can you just type templetonrecreation.org, please?
So it's over there, go to the farthest tab.
Oh, well
There, right, I
done.
had it up.
All right, welcome to sports.
Is this easier for you to manage
This is,
in terms of
Yes
like
and no.
posting updates?
this is how we do registration,
Okay.
right? So this is the registration website.
Uh-huh.
It was required of us 2 or 3 years ago by Cal South, which is the parent organization we affiliate to for soccer, that we get this Blue Sombrero Sports Connect thing, right? Since we had to get it, they were offering us crazy deals on being able to manage all of our registration, right? Simultaneously, we were using this, prior to that, we were using Tyler Parks and Rec module that was not working for anybody. So we decided to put everything through registration on this website. And so because we have to run soccer through it, and soccer's the biggest sport, it was easier to just shove everything over here. So yes, in many ways it's easier because it's almost just like the one thing that we have to pay attention to. And then we go back to the CSD website and, consistently remember to update that as well. So, this site is kind of what we use, like I said, for all the registration stuff. So like right now we're registering for soccer, and if you wanted information, you could click just on this little thing. And here's all of your soccer information, and then you can sign up directly online, right? Yeah.
I just wanna look at the fees.
I will say it is kind of hard to find this page on the CSD website.
Okay, I can put
It's
it
kind
on.
of like hidden, like you have to kind of like click through a little bit to get here, and then the URL obviously is not, like it's not like,
Well, we do
Yeah.
pay for a URL, it's templetonrecreation.org, so you
That's
could
what-
type that in.
and that would take.
And it
you
will
here.
take you to, yes,
Okay.
even though it will always show leagues.bluesombrero. Right? But when
They
you
rewrote.
type Templeton, I just renewed the domain, for like $15.
Okay, cool.
So it's, yeah, if you do, and I can make a bigger deal out of that on the rec website.
Yeah, and then also since it looks like, can you do, and like, these are, forgive my ignorance.
Fair.
Can this, so you can do all of your registration for all of your sports.
Mhm.
Could you theoretically also do your rentals on here, your calendar? So
I
that,
don't know that this would translate, because this was it's through Stack Sports, so it's designed
Okay,
for
for
sports, right? So I don't know that there would be a module for like calendar rentals on there.
okay,
Some of the issue with calendar rentals is we wanna have almost total control over that, right? And frankly, make people reach out to us about the reservations, because we don't want it to be a free-for-all. People will show up and, you know, have bounce houses and barbecues at places that cannot handle that, right?
Got it.
So our parks, this park could handle that, right, in a different way, than Evers could, right? Or we have folks showing up to use two different areas of the park, and we wanna make sure that we can sort of facilitate that, where people get confused about which areas of the park they're actually renting.
Can you go back to the fees for a second, please? So, okay, so under 8 boys, so is this where they sign up also for if they're out of area?
Yes, so when you go through the process for this, which I'm not gonna do because it's a lot,
Yeah.
there's a question on there, do you live in Templeton? But attend, let me think about how they were worded, cause we have two different fees for out of district, right? One is, do you live outside of Templeton and attend school outside of Templeton? If you hit yes to that, it's an automatic $50 fee. If you, the other question is, do you live outside of Templeton but attend school at Templeton, right? And that's the $15 fee.
So then they would have to upload like I mean, what if they just say, yes, well, we live in Templeton, even though they don't?
So their address is on here. They have to put their address. We'll just call them and charge them $50. I'll send them a fee. No, most people don't do that. Because they have, the first thing you have to do is enter your address. Most people are say like, oh yeah, I don't live in
I know
Templeton.
people that did that.
Yeah, are you getting an alert, like,
Although some
you're getting a
people
list?
put their grandparents.
Yeah, that's
and
what they're doing,
uncles
they're
or-
putting their grandparents in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That
I
has
don't wanna, I'm not the live here police.
the schools are,
The schools are.
Yeah.
yeah.
They have a lot more people who work there.
So I'm just saying that there are more
I mean,
people probably from outside that are signing up that are not part of the district and they're signing up as local.
Mhm. I mean, I can spend an enormous amount of time chasing them, absolutely. But I don't know that $50 is worth it. You know, most people are pretty honest about it and they'll pay for it. In fact, we just got a call yesterday. I was gonna sign up, but then I heard you charge $50 because they live in Paso. So we're not gonna do it. So whatever's in my cart, like just empty it, right? So go play somewhere else. So.
I think it's a balancing act. I mean, I don't wanna encourage anyone to be dishonest, but if
Right.
you're gonna work hard enough to avoid it, they'll find a way.
Well, yeah, and
Right.
you don't wanna like be prohibitive by putting, like, uploading documents. How many people,
You have to. That's what
Yeah.
you do.
yeah,
I guess the
Not
question
fair.
is, in the amount of time that it would take to enforce that, is that worth the amount of funds that we would
garden.
recover? Or basically people saying, forget it, I'm not even
No,
gonna
don't
pay.
know.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, we don't, yeah, we
We
don't.
don't know. Well, we don't.
Yeah, it's an issue, and the thing that makes this a much bigger deal in Templeton than maybe many other communities is our school district has a lot of out-of-district transfers, which it represents a significant portion of the school population. And so it's a common
Mhm.
thing in this greater area to try to get your kids in Templeton schools one way or another. And using another address is a common way of doing so.
Okay, so that is our website. What is this about marketing and outreach? So we use the website a lot. The website, if I were to log in, it will show a lot of different options here for like the admin side. One of the things we can do is email all active users, right? I can email user groups. I can email last year's soccer registrants or flag football registrants or anybody who signed up for skate camp last year, right? Or I can just send it out to all active users. So if you've ever registered for a sport or an activity on the website, you earlier today, or maybe last night, got an email that was talking about, don't forget to sign up for fall soccer. We have scoot and skate camps coming up on these dates. We've got, what else was happening on there? Art classes coming up, the soccer camps that were coming up through Challenger. So they got links to everything, just a quick little, not even very spammy. It was very quick, right? Sign up for these things if you're interested. Have a great summer. Can't wait to see you out there. So it's really direct marketing to the people who have expressed interest in receiving them, right? One of the harder parts is that when we are looking at the youngest ages, we have to go directly to like preschools, right? So we'll go to Laugh and Learn, Children's Garden, the preschool we host. And then there's a lot of private preschools I don't really bother with because I don't want to go to people's homes, right? They'll figure it out. But we do also email all the flyers to the schools, and so they come home in the school packets. They used to print them out and we'd have to like separate all the prints. Now it's just an email that comes out, like look at the activities from Templeton Rec, right? Oftentimes when we have a lot of activities happening, we'll do something like a summer flyer, summer activities flyer, or a spring or fall activities flyer. And it'll just like skate camp on these dates, like click here, or QR codes, right? So it's a single flyer with different activities on it all. We did not do that this year. But that is something else that we do. We send that through the schools, so it goes to the parents' inbox through the school loop or whatever it is now, Parent Square, thank you. And I just spammed them the other day with probably 5 or 6 different flyers. So hopefully they were approved and you'll probably see them this week. So quick before the end of school year.
They sent out flyers for other camps and stuff recently, so I'm sure
Sure, they'll get,
they will not discriminate.
yeah, they'll get in the shuffle. We're on like a mostly automatic approved list, so, which is cool. And it's just a simple upload through a Google Doc.
If you go home right now, I think I saw earlier, Beer Run was on here. You have like an event sort of like snapshot. Yeah, okay. So arts and crafts is up there now. And
So Beer Run probably is not.
it was this morning.
Oh, good. And then I know like on our Templeton CSD page, it's on the homepage. So this is the other place that I put big
Right.
important things, right? Like concerts in the park, and this will take you directly to that events website, or excuse me, the events page of our website, or the Beer Run. Evers closed because Bethel just opened today.
On the classes page, on the calendar, I saw it on I think on the rental report that you sent out, there are some reoccurring classes. And I
Yes.
think we had talked previously about, why or why not they are or are not highlighted on the website.
A couple of parts. So the recurring event, specifically that happens at the rec department at Lens Place, right? Is a preschool, and historically they are full. They
Right.
have wait lists, so they don't want us to advertise for them. When they are not full, and I think they just filled up their summer camp. I was asking her if she wanted me to put it on the website for her. But they just filled up summer camp as well. So if they were not full, I would definitely put them on here.
Okay.
Same for any other class. We've had Zumba classes in the past that are up here. I know there's like a Little Birds music class in the community center, but I don't know, they've never asked us to put it up. So, cause it's more of a rental than a class that we're hosting, right? Traditionally at Parks and Rec, you would have like a class listing and you sign up through the Parks and Rec department, right? Ours are primarily rentals, so, yeah.
Okay.
So it puts the onus on the instructor to the success or failure.
And that's even the case with like preschool, even
Yeah.
though.
It is the
we-
case with, yes,
Even though
exactly.
we have the license and we have the facility, there's no payment to PCSD from a parent for the preschool program. It's directly to the promoter or the organizer of that program.
But other reoccurring classes would be on there.
If they
If
wanted
they
to,
wanted to.
yes, absolutely. Cool.
And I would echo Mel's point here that I think the way we've dealt with this is a little unusual. And it's been this way consistently for many years, but there was a point in time when we were running these classes. And I think it became more of a, like, this, like an accounting issue and nightmare in terms of tracking. So well, I'm gonna date myself here considerably, but back in the 1980s, I worked in recreation. And And the way a lot of programs run at the time is sort of a split risk, where you have an instructor or somebody who wants to come run the class, and they say, okay, if you host the class, city of XYZ, and I wanna run it here, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good fit, or that sounds like something that we'll wanna try. The instructor might get 70% of the gross proceeds, and the city gets the other 30%, and you sort of share the risk. That at least was commonly done in the past.
Yeah.
Or years ago, not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Not here. That's pretty traditional too. That's the model in, you know, the cities, right, that have, you know, bigger staff or.
Right.
Yeah, so primarily that is our outreach and marketing. We do press releases and send them out to the local press when we have something going on. Or sometimes KSBY just randomly stops by my office and asks to talk. So because currently the reporters are Templeton kids, and so they're like, Mel, you'll always talk to us. So that's kind of fun and helpful. As far as press releases go, that's traditionally the marketing, we try to stick very much within Templeton, so, and then a lot of direct communication.
How about the social media?
Oh, yeah, sure, we have Facebook and Instagram and, do we need to pull that up?
One quick thing before you leave.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes to the next topic on the rentals. I don't know, is it possible to get better photos of the facilities?
Probably, I
Because
think,
I don't even think all of the facilities are included in photographs either on like the brochure that you can download or on the website.
oh, sure, let's have a look, shall we?
Like,
Just
when
do
you
that for the
click
recent.
on a particular
I think the brochure is,
location,
yeah.
have a picture of that location.
So that, yeah, this,
So yeah, those are, yeah,
The-
like
the-
Lens Place and the community center, like there's,
Yeah,
I don't know, I just felt like
that was me standing in a corner trying to figure out how to.
it
make
just
this
doesn't like,
big.
you can't really see all of the features that site has.
Sure, yeah,
And so maybe the brochure just got redone, but maybe on the website we could have, just so, I don't know, like,
we have a floor plan or something like that we could make available, or something that just.
you can take better pictures too, like put up, you know, multiple pictures, like, you know, here, I don't even know what the pictures are.
yeah, so like here, yeah, there's nothing there.
Oh, that's because I don't want them in there. Yes, I could definitely do that, yes.
Yeah, just so you can see like what is the craft and what is.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Guessing we don't even have the community center up here.
Do people usually call for that one?
Yes.
Well, it's another thing's a little confusing, the community center rentals come out of the district office. And all in the rec, and the,
Oh, right.
Yeah, they manage it over here. I pay for it over there.
Okay, that's all I have for the website.
So then if people pay for these reservations, did they come over here and pay?
So for the community center, yes.
But not-
That's been more closely held, right? But if you reserved German Park for a sports team or something, they would come through my office. But I mean, all the money flows through here, right?
It
I'll end
comes
up
back
bringing it
here at
over.
some point.
Yeah,
it's a little more, the community center's a little more formal, there's like a deposit to hold the room on the calendar, and then you have a cleaning deposit.
Right,
And
that
we
is
don't
a-
have that stuff with like.
much more.
But it should still be on the website.
Yes, absolutely, yes, I gotta know.
Yeah, I don't know, we don't have it, it's just
I'm
in
not
that
sure why it
brochure,
wasn't
just in that
there.
brochure, maybe?
No.
It was in the brochure, wasn't it? Yeah, it was one of
Yeah,
the
it's right there.
primary
Oh,
things in the
there.
brochure,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but we can, I mean, it's pretty easy to put it up.
Yeah.
So just get some good pictures.
Yeah, that's all I have.
And they'll be typically on the website, we can probably make them bigger too. So look at how pretty ours is though. There's Grass Girl in there right now, guys. I was just there. Looking at it, it's closed, you know, I had to lock the gate behind me. Awesome. So that's the website.
And so then we have also a Facebook and.
We do. You wanna look at it?
Icons, and see where it takes you next to the Templeton.
Oh, well, is that yours?
But
Oh, you have to log in.
Yeah.
You have to be in your Facebook to see them. And how often do you post on those? Like,
Ours
think they
is huge. I don't wanna do that.
Who's in charge?
Bree, John and I are all admins, so, we have I've probably got like 9 different pages under my Facebook account for like, there's one for softball and soccer. Some of the soccer board members help with the soccer one. But the rec department one is where we kind of funnel everything.
Same thing with Instagram managed.
Same thing, yeah, they're connected, they're linked, so
Oh.
anything we post on one goes to
I
the
think
other.
the Instagram might, there might go to the rec page because.
Let's find out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Templeton Recreation.
We don't have a CSD.
Oh, look, beer runs, concerts,
Oh,
yard
the
sale.
Everyone's
Girls
getting
flag
to put
football.
on an Instagram.
You're getting your water bill again. Actually, the water conservation stuff could
That's,
be
yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
decent posts, but
yeah,
you
so
can let the rec post.
I think, that's just.
Okay, so I'm gonna be looking for like the art.
They'll be up there, exactly.
When you click on the stuff that you post, there would be the link that would take you. to
Yes,
where
yeah,
you can add.
back to the website, basically, yeah. Yeah.
Be in there.
Okay, update on rentals? Please.
Too far gone. Who's driving? What do you guys wanna know about rentals? Here we go. What are we on? The community center. Busy. It's actually, honestly, I will say, just being over there, it has been getting busier.
More
Which is
weekend
really nice to see. There's some weekend events, there's, in fact, I think on Saturday, there's another event in there, although I think it's like our 4th, celebration of life in the last month or so. But it is starting to be, more well used, and typically by local folks, like this one is someone I've known since high school.
I can't remember, are these reports labeled by site? Cause I couldn't.
Yes, so this one's community center,
Okay, perfect.
rec center.
Perfect.
Rec center's pretty, standing meetings, basically, and then the preschool, which precludes anybody else being in there during those hours. Cause the facility itself is licensed, so we have to be careful with that. Evers and German Park are pretty similar. Evers, we kind of block off, most weekdays, most of the year, with the exception of winter, when we try to block it off anyway, because it's winter. And growing grass, right? But most weekdays, it's reserved during the evenings, especially after school timeframe for organized sports use, that sports that we actually operate. And then on Sundays, we have a few rentals. There's, in the spring, there's a few local travel teams that like to rent it. Use the dirt, so.
We have other groups that actually show up to the parks that are not necessarily renting them, because they're obviously open to the public. For example, each of the last 2 years, I think we've had huge groups from CAL FIRE there several
Oh,
days a
gosh,
week.
yeah.
Like,
Cal Fire does use a lot.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
very heavy user, of it, but it's not, they show up with 30-40 people.
Yeah, I think we got a hold of them. They were a CAL FIRE station out of, I think they were out at Camp Roberts. And they would come out and just do like a play day, right? They're just out there playing soccer, and so we got a hold of whoever their chief was, out there, whoever was in charge. And they said that they would try to be more formal about renting it if they're gonna bring, bus loads of firefighters to come out and destroy the grass. But I like seeing people out there. I was out there for a referee training once, 2 years ago, I think, and a group of ultimate frisbee users came out, and apparently they rotate at what parks they use or what parks they go to. I was shocked they picked Evers at 11 a.m. on a August morning, but great. So they were out there too. They moved some goals, so I made the refs go, you're gonna practice being in charge right now. I mean, I went with them, right, but it was good practice for them. So yeah, so that's, what was this? This was, yeah, winter, spring. So, you know, typically in the winter, we go through Soccer All-Stars, which ends mid-January. Then early February, we're moving into softball, so, and T-ball. And then German Park, we see more, rental at German Park in the upper section for birthday parties and gatherings like that. We'll have folks putting, bounce houses up. We always, you know, require the additionally insured by the bounce house company. There is no electricity access out there, so they'll have to bring in the generators. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna go as generators start moving out of California. So, and then other than that, it's typically soccer practices and games into All-Stars, which goes essentially August through with All-Stars January. We will see in the spring, we did not allow it this year because we were doing the field work out there. The 805 lacrosse is interested in renting field space for practices. And we have traditionally let them rent field space. And then some other local, we got a lot of calls this year because Barney Schwartz Park is closing fields. They closed all of their fields for maintenance. And then they are opening them back up, but they will keep one field, actually the city of Paso is keeping one field closed at all times. It just rotates what field that's going to be for maintenance. So we got a lot of calls this year, this spring, because they're doing a ton of field maintenance as well. So all these club soccer teams are being displaced by this policy or this, you know, update. And they wanted to come out to our parks, but I had to send them off to Atascadero, so. Because we closed our parks as well, so, yeah. Oh, and baseball, we let baseball come out and take pictures at Bethel, or German Park. Typically during softball and baseball season, our picture days will be the same, but baseball this year used Score Sports and did not get their uniforms in time, which I could have told them that was going to happen if they had called me. And, so I think by the last day of games, they finally had the final uniforms in, but they delayed pictures almost a whole month, to try to get everything taken care of. So they finally, or to get the uniforms in, so we reserved Bethel Park for them, no big deal. We're gonna close it literally the Monday after you're out, no problem. April 12th, it rained. So, so we put them in the rec department because we were gonna be there. So, so they came in and used our facility for that, because it's the same thing we would do for softball when it rains, they move into, yeah, actually, I think it's what we had to do this year. Did we do pictures inside? I think we did.
Going back to the community center.
Yep.
So it just seems like during the day, it doesn't get much use. I mean, I'm glad to see like Saturdays, Sundays, it's, you know, picked up a little bit, but during the day, it just, doesn't get much use. You have the women's, club that's there, and then the Women's Connection on Fridays, but the rest of the time it's not there. So I'm glad that you know, you're gonna put it on the website, but I mean, is there anything else we could do? Any ideas where we could encourage more day use? I mean, you know.
We used to have a senior club that meet in there.
Yeah,
That was our program.
we're actually looking to restart that.
Yeah, that was.
But I would say historically, even pre-COVID, so it's COVID, like, you know, everything sort of stopped, now it's kind of
decimated,
going back. But even pre-COVID, I don't think the community center got a lot of sort of what you might call like convention or business use, like daytime meetings and stuff. We had a little bit of training, occasionally a training class or something that would go in there, but in general, I don't remember getting much business day use.
I mean, I know that building needs some work, and we've already spent some money in the kitchen and things like that, so. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's something, considering that we do have other facilities, I mean, and this was donated to us, you know.
The community center?
Yeah, it was donated to us, so, so I don't know, it's just.
Yeah, it definitely seems underutilized.
Yeah, and so it's gonna cost us a lot more money, but if it's not getting used.
Right.
you know, repairing, or we have to repair it and then it's still not being
But
used.
there are
So
some,
it's just like, one of those
Like-
things that we
like-
say we don't want it anymore, or let the women's club decide what they wanna do?
yeah, I haven't really explored, like, can we cancel that agreement? But I guess what I'd say is the building has some limitations. One of which is it's very noisy in that building. I don't like to hold meetings in there because it's the noise coming from the road comes
Oh,
into the building.
external.
Yeah, external noise comes into the building to the point where it's difficult to use for, you know, we use it occasionally. You know, 10 years ago when the county was, we were hosting meetings for like the county, for Paso Basin, those kind of things. They were over there because the room was always available, but it's a difficult room to use because of, like, trucks, we have a lot of heavy traffic on Main Street. And when they drive by, the noise just penetrates the
Very loud.
building. Very noisy. It's very hard to hear.
And then I know we spent, I think I know the refrigerator was like $10,000, the
Yeah.
stove we put in was like $8,000, and then I looked on here, it's like, I don't know if there's any group that's really using it. And that's money coming out of our parks and rec, so I wanted.
Well, if you might recall, I didn't want to repair this. I was like, there's no enough use to justify maintaining a kitchen. And I brought it before the committee and the group that used the
Yeah.
committee makeup changed, but the group that used it made a big
Yeah.
thing and said, no, we need this and
If they need it, I mean, we've already spent the money on that, but if it's just one group that's using it, well, fine, let them take it back, I mean, it's the same group.
well, no, that wasn't the women's club. That was North County's women's.
Oh, that
Connection.
was- That's right.
That they were.
So they just warm up their food in there, and then, so we ended up spending quite a bit of money, and it's like for only 20 people or 25 people. So it's
But I understand that the model that we have in terms of like events is more like where we treat it as an external vendor who's just utilizing our property, right? But that doesn't mean that we couldn't solicit and proactively advertise, like on social media, the availability of these spaces to help.
Don't generate more
I know
interest.
I know people would love to
People
have
don't
a
know.
office space or something like that too.
A co-working
Yeah,
group or something, yeah, exactly, so I think that like. I think that some effort could be made around, when we talk about like outreach and marketing around that too. I understand that like, we put the onus on the individual instructors and the organizers of these groups, but, I think that before we say this building is more of a hassle than it's worth, we should really make an effort to see what interest we can, you know.
No, I mean, I'm open
Yeah.
to like,
Any parking over there, and, you know,
Yeah,
in the back, there's skate park.
There's no internet.
no
There's
Wi-Fi.
no internet,
Correct.
In that
there's
building?
no what,
There's no Wi-Fi in that building.
Really?
that's an issue.
Yeah, it's probably a fact, it's possibly a factor. I guess I would go back and say when the building was built, let's say, I think it was built in 1996, mid-90s, about 30 years ago. That the women's club, again, this is indirect, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of this, but the women's club wanted to build a clubhouse, because they go back like a century. And raise money and build this building and realize they really couldn't afford to own and operate the building. And so they came to the district and the district accepted it under the condition that the women's club could use it in perpetuity at no cost. So
So
we,
basically just got like a free asset.
or liability, depends on one's
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
How would you like a 1983 Jaguar? What you can maintain. Anyways, so that's sort of the Reader's Digest version of what happened, but I think it was envisioned to be like this social location for the community. This, you know, these fundraiser dinners and the Lions Club and the Rotary Club and the Kiwanis Club and then in the past 30 years, our society changed a lot and a lot of things in the community have changed. And now we have all these wineries that have great outdoor venues and indoor venues that are a lot, quite honestly, just more scenic and inviting. And so if I was gonna have a party for 50
Get-together,
people.
yeah.
And I was gonna, I wouldn't probably go to the community center. It's a nice sense there, but there's a lot of other places available in the surrounding area.
Plus, I think we're competing with the American Legion Hall as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big area.
Yeah, we are, we're competing, with that. So then the needs or the demands have changed, at least from the social gathering, and then the clubs, most of they don't exist anymore. Like the Kiwanis Club has
Yeah.
gone away.
Lions Club is like down to like 6 or 7 people.
Yeah.
And then the work is, so, if you think back a generation ago or a couple generations ago, that this concept of we're part of a club and we're gonna make dinner and serve everybody, that's kind of all gone away. Everyone just goes to a restaurant now or meets a place where they don't have to do that work. So I think if you were to start over, you wouldn't have what is there today, based on today's needs. And there isn't a lot of, for a little while, the school district would use it periodically for some special training or testing, and the county still we used to give it away to the county because we had this our policy said the county could use it at no cost. And then the district, so it got used by the county for training, that actually they hosted all of those Paso Basin. I used to have a lot of meetings in there, here. And we realized that we're paying the county to use the park outdoors in public, but we're giving away the community center to the county, and so we changed that policy was changed by the board, and so that took away a lot of its use. But that wasn't income generating use, it was just use.
I didn't realize it didn't have Wi-Fi, that definitely will be,
So,
could be a.
yeah, so the women's club that uses it, they don't pay,
Just-
and then
Just the
Lions
ones-
Club, like meet now every other month maybe. So it's just, I don't know.
I mean,
based on-
I think, so certainly we can make the information more available on social media. I think if you said, okay, hey, who's a good, what kind of uses are a good candidate for the room? That would be good to kind of keep in mind. We'd love to reach out to them. I quite frankly think it was built for this sort of, I'll call it social hall, kitchen. Like, it was envisioned to be this sort of the centerpiece of a small community, and over that generation, the community's changed quite a bit, and we have a lot of other, again, if you're gonna host 50 people, not at your house, where would you go? And we have all these great venues all around us. Almost every winery has a place that you can host
I mean,
But not in the winter. Not when it's cold and rainy, and like. We could, not having internet though is a problem, unless you're
well,
doing
that
like.
shouldn't be too hard.
You could do like things like movie nights and things in there.
You should be able
you
to
know?
get in.
Yeah, it's just a cost, it's just a
Yeah,
cost.
just
Yeah.
how much, who
Yeah,
knows?
it shouldn't be too bad. Get Spectrum.
It's not too much, I'd have to look at what it is. Spectrum's actually coming to do a senior
training.
internet safety class,
Yeah.
in the community center, so maybe
That would be.
Train 'em.
maybe I'll build this in.
Yes.
Do some back scratching.
The building doesn't, yeah.
So, then I know that building would get it, 'cause we have next door, and they had to install some, they had to do some digging in the concrete out there to get us the internet, so.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, definitely, I think that's one of our buildings, this needs help in terms of usage is being underused, and yeah, we gotta make a decision on it, all for trying to figure out ways to use it, but if we can't, it takes your time, it takes, staff time, it takes money to, keep it up.
Rehab it, yeah.
Keep it up.
Yeah, and it takes time to rent it too, so
Yeah.
so people who wanna rent it, because a lot of times these uses are like a single, they wanna come look at it. There'll be 3-4 visits for
Yeah.
one
You're
customer,
unlocking it.
yeah, you check out a key, or you go there to walk them through it, it's a time consuming, cause it's not a staff facility.
Yeah.
It's way different than if it was like attached, it's, we'll just walk in there.
Yeah.
This is, we have to walk with them or check out a key, and then, again, a lot of it's good for things like the celebration of life, because it might be available on fairly short notice, and we can, those kind of things happen there more often. And it's maybe it's maybe comfortable at 50 or 75 people.
And we've had like some quinceañeras and some baby showers and stuff over the
So
years.
how do we wanna move forward? What do we wanna do?
I mean, I don't have anything for rent, right, more for that, I know.
Cool.
Discuss it later for. agenda.
Alright. Okay then, we'll wrap it up. It is 12, I guess, looking at internet on that. But yeah, as I said, there are people that may be interested in renting it for work, working out of there, if you could make cubicles or something
So,
like
but
that.
that would be like a permanent, I mean, so I
Right.
guess the thing is, if you rent it to somebody, then is it preventing the other uses from happening? Cause so, and is,
Yeah.
that would be like a pretty big,
Well,
Investment and change.
yeah, but if we lose, I mean, if we're losing money, the other way is we're gonna make money, then, we have to look out for the whole community, so.
yeah, I think if that's something we wanna explore, we should revisit the whole agreement with
Yeah.
Women's Club, because right now, they have this sort of carte
Yeah.
blanche, they make the call, they get the room, we set, even with their agreement, we set up the facilities, it's a lot of work, we set it up.
It's usually about a week.
Oh, okay.
I think that's about what we get to.
So we set up the room and everything?
Yep, set it
and
up.
We have a standing meeting that we're
Yeah.
We don't charge for it?
expecting.
It's part of the agreement,
Really?
back in the nineties, that's what the district agreed to.
Oh, back in the 90s,
Yeah.
didn't.
We had a different.
The Gen Xers are now calling it the before the turn of the century.
Yeah.
With the 1900s.
Yeah.
Comparison of youth soccer programs. Please.
I'm driving now.
Yep,
You all right with that?
Your thoughts, you again?
you can blow that up.
All right, well,
That's great.
so, yeah. Jeff had asked me to come up with sort of a listing of the local programs, the costs, the numbers, the participation numbers, and so we interleague play with all of these leagues, and so I had pretty easy access to the information, and here you are. So Templeton and Morro Bay, if you'll notice, are the two that are operated by cities, right, or local government agency, right? But also have a volunteer board. Morro Bay is significantly smaller in participation numbers than Templeton. They had less than 100 kids. A lot of the kids from Morro Bay will go to Los Osos Youth Soccer, or South Bay Soccer Association, what they call it. I'm not sure what the draw is there, other than they have, the Los Osos Middle School that they play at, and it's a kind of a nice facility, and I think when you live between Morro Bay and Los Osos, all the high schools and a couple elementary schools are in Morro Bay, the high school, but the middle school and other elementary schools are in Los Osos, and it's really just a, the sister cities kind of thing, so. Then I like seeing this, of course, how we have more players in Paso. And we charge us significantly more than they do. And if you live in Paso, go to school in Paso, remember, this is $200 and this is $220. So, $230, excuse me, so. Yeah, so here's all the comparison, where they play, team numbers, Atascadero, we typically have similar numbers, around about the same. I'm glad to see they're a little bigger than me, frankly, Paso Robles should be bigger than Templeton as well. But Atascadero does a couple things differently than we do. They're U8 teams, they play 4-on-4, we play 6-on-6, and so our team numbers are gonna be 8 to 10. Where with 4 kids on a field in Atascadero, you're gonna look at something like 6 to 8 kids, right? So they'll have more teams if you look at like a player to team ratio. So they also have a little kickers program, which I wanna do, it's like we have U6, they have like a U4. I wanna start that up, yeah. It is pretty adorable. That is just cash.
Yeah.
That is what that
Uh-huh.
is. Money for Mel, all right? So, the rec department, but yeah, so, cause they don't use referees, there's just fingerprinting coaches, really training them. So those are the numbers.
Do you know, if, Morro Bay staff oversees any other sports aside from?
Yes, they do all of the sports.
They do all the same?
Yeah, so the same as ours, they'll do, they have soccer, basketball, they have a futsal program. They have a flag football program and a softball t-ball program.
But their numbers are much smaller.
Their numbers are smaller, yeah, exactly. Morro Bay is, it's kind of a retirement community, right? There's not a lot of kids there. So Los Osos is kind of where the kids are, right? Morro Bay is where the retired people are. I will also say, sorry if I'm
Yeah,
interrupting
no.
your train of thought here. These cities, some of them do run sports, right? They just don't run soccer, for example. So like City of Atascadero runs basketball programs, because they have the gyms, right? So when you look at like who has the facilities, for whatever reason, cities are more vested in their gyms. So City of Atascadero, has, and Paso does too, but the city doesn't run any sports. They have all volunteer programs run that, or they contract it out to the YMCA, which is not successful. So,
Are, and I forget if we've discussed this, is it the intention that we'll get a similar breakdown for each sport, or it was this individual just for soccer?
this,
I just requested soccer only because it was information that we had pretty readily available. But, you know, we could do something similar for other activities if you'd like. You know, it's probably not that difficult to pull together. If it's programs that we run, we
Right,
know the
right.
people that we're with.
yeah, exactly.
Can you tell me a little bit about AYSO and their use and their benefits, and is that something that we could possibly consider?
Yes, I can tell you about it. No, we cannot consider it, and I will tell you why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leagues here. They all play Cal South except for Paso Robles, and there's a reason for that, right? So AYSO is, you know, it is honestly a great program. It is all volunteer. So if Templeton or any city that runs soccer programs goes the way of AYSO, we are no longer running the program. You cannot, through AYSO, you cannot pay somebody to operate the program, so it can't be run through a recreation department. It also has some pretty strong requirements for volunteerism from the parents, where the parents are required to referee their games, or kids are refereeing the games. And so that can lead to, I have seen it lead to a lot of issues, you know, especially in the older levels, where like, you know, dad's reffing his son's game and suddenly guess whose team gets to win and whose team is getting all the calls. Bias is a thing, whether you're intending it or not. And then now we don't run all stars, right? It's in direct spirit competition with the spirit of recreational play, but for an AYSO kid to make all stars, their parent has to volunteer a certain number of hours, right? And so it would put many kids have not been able to play all stars in Paso because their parents work and they could not put the amount of volunteer hours into it. So there's a few issues with it. We kind of talk about it internally as like sort of a dying model. It's an issue, AYSO model. So I'm hoping that they adjust, frankly. I think it'd be important for AYSO to adjust at the national level. It's I think we've moved past I don't want to say all volunteer programs, but a program where the success of your child is based on your ability to volunteer for them. I have a hard time with that.
And then, so a lot of other places, they use volunteer board
Mhm.
exclusively, so
Literally.
why are we not looking into something like that?
I think historically, before the rec department was formed, Templeton had all volunteer sports. And I think there were some issues. I mean, this was like the 80s, so I don't know what was happening. But it became pretty clear for whatever reasons, that they wanted, you know, TCSD wanted to sort of manage those youth sports and keep the kids busy in a different way. And so TCSD started managing it, so.
So, I mean, yeah, my concern is that, and I don't know what the numbers in terms of players were back then. Obviously, we have the highest number, and that's just putting so much pressure on you and your staff. And I know that, you know, you deal with every little detail, every, you know, single parent. And so I just thought, like, having a volunteer board, like a stronger volunteer board that, that takes some of that pressure off of you, and your staff. And then, so that way you could concentrate on other areas, other programs. I think, I thought maybe that would be something to look at, but I was just wondering, in your opinion, do we need to make any adjustments, or you think?
I think the reason we have more players than Paso is because we're not all volunteer. There's something to be said about like having people run a program who don't have a horse in the race, right? I'm not an overworked volunteer who is coming in after a full day job, coming in to run the program, right? So I think a lot of value is lost by having an all volunteer. I think it's great what they do, right? I think it's absolutely impressive to have an all volunteer program, but I think a lot of value is lost in what they do. There's a reason Paso comes here to play, right? And
think
it's
there's
not because Mel's so great, it's because my job is to organize the program for them. It's communication, right? So it's not because our fields are so great, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to the volunteers, usually the volunteers are parents.
Well, so that's the other
Who do
part.
parents push their own child, there's nepotism, or whatever you want
Exactly.
to call it in the volunteer program.
Absolutely. And so I do think, there's huge value in volunteer boards, right? Huge. And we use ours a lot, right? They help pay for things like soccer coach shirts and goalie trainings. And they are, when we're having, I think we have like 3 or 4 different locations running at any given Saturday. I've got volunteers from our soccer board at other locations, right? Like kind of being eyes and ears, and calling me if something goes wrong, or they come help with referee training or all of those things, right? So we do, all 70 of those teams were coached by volunteers, right? So it is, it is much more of a blended model than just, the rec department staff running it all, right? So, yeah, I think it would change things fundamentally. I don't think we would hit 730 players if we weren't running the program.
Well, no, my hope is to try to continue to increase not only those numbers, but the soccer numbers, but also, offer other programs as well. So and then have our staff be more of overall manager, supervisor, and so you're not getting into the nitty-gritty details of everything. It's like, I remember, I think it was, we were having a strategic plan, and you were concerned that night because they were picking teams for baseball and you needed to be there, and it's just, so I was kind of surprised that you get involved in that kind of detail. So so it just, I thought that would, the volunteer boards or things like that would take care of it. So I just didn't expect that level of involvement from you. I thought you'd be more overseeing them, and as a rec department staff overseeing it, so that way you could concentrate on making sure their programs are running smoothly, having nice fundraisers for our for our department, and having other programs that are more maybe geared toward adults and things like that. So I don't know, maybe this is, it's just maybe just maybe the vision. What's the vision gonna be for our Parks and Rec over the next 10 years, 15 years, as hopefully the town is gonna be growing and more kids coming in. So, just some, thoughts that I had.
I also share some of the same questions and concerns, because when I was thinking about joining the board, the first thing I did to sort of just like educate myself is I looked at the census data for Templeton, right? And so 2022 census data, only 28% of our population falls within youth. So 12% are ages 0 to 9, 16% are ages 10 to 19. And it does feel like all of our park and rec is concentrated on youth rec sports. And I understand that was a decision that we made, and it's a model choice and all of those things. But I also am concerned about the availability of staff to then also pursue services for the other majority of the population. I think the lack of rentals of, you know, the community center is an indication that more effort needs to be done to sort of reach other community members. Especially if the only way that we're really getting a pulse grip is through the mailing list of people who have already registered previously through youth sports. And so I think I also was surprised how much staff time is dedicated to the running and management of these sports. I understand what you're saying in terms of the benefits of, we want to make sure that children's access and success is not tied to the variables of volunteerism. And I know firsthand, like, working parents do not have a lot of time, the resources or the availability, or honestly, even the energy to do a lot of the stuff that you and your staff have been able to accomplish with serving 730 soccer players with a staff of 3 is insane. Like, that's insane. It's so impressive. But I also do wonder about some of those hybrid models where we could, you know, lean a little bit more on some of those past parents who maybe, you know, their kids have aged out, or at least they've moved up, and having them be a more active volunteer board where we don't have to necessarily worry about, you know, them coaching their individual child's team and any favoritism that may happen, but then also giving some responsibility and leadership to that sort of an organization so that, you know, we can pursue other things. And I don't want to like seem like I am proposing fundamental or radical changes, but I do want to ask questions about what flexibility we have to pursue, you know, serving more of the community in a different way.
Sure. So it is historically, we've had sort of like the mandate that like keep the kids busy,
Yeah.
right? They light things on fire. The issue with, just as an example of what you were mentioning, like running adult sports, is we don't have facilities for that.
Right.
All of our facilities are built for children, right? So if I looked at running an adult softball program, for example, which is hard. But our base lengths are 5 feet too short, right? So just at Evers Park, right? Aside from that, the length of the field it's only 160, I think. We need to have about, it's 140. We need to have about 165 to 170 at least, right? For like a home run area. But in order to move the 60-foot base paths back to 65, which is required for adults, right? It would require moving irrigation, because there's irrigation boxes behind second base on both fields, right, at Evers. So, and that is significant, right? That is more than, you know, moving bases is easy. Or gym use, for example, if we're running adult basketball, we don't have a gym, so I don't have anywhere to run it. And the schools are happy to let us run programs in their facilities for their kids, right? But maybe not as happy for their adults, right? So, so there's been some issues with that, right?
Did you run, you know, did you do any survey to see if there's really any interest in adult?
So that's the other part, is we have done surveys with the community for, you know, several times. I think it's probably, I think it's on our strategic plan, is actually to run some more surveys, right? Because it's about time. But when we did the Blue Ribbon Committee report in the early 2000s, and then again in the mid 2000s, and then we did the master plan, the biggest things that people want are things that we don't have the capacity to provide, right? Walking paths and
Yeah.
trails. It's not something that falls on our purview. Or, you know, frankly, they focus on activities for their children, right? I think adult activities were pretty low on that list, that weren't walking. and-
Adult
and
recreational.
Adult recreational activities were low on their list. So we can, put it out again, right? What we have heard from the community in those previous surveys were that, I'm an adult, I can find my own activities, right? My kids can't, right? And so I think that was sort of the model for why we've been so heavily focused, right? We did used to have a senior club before COVID, right? COVID kind of decimated it, and we've actually been talking to someone about starting that back up again and using that Spectrum class. I think it's in August. I have another meeting soon to figure that out. To sort of kick that back off and start trying to get like a senior club or an active adults club a little more robust, right? And meeting more often, right? So yeah.
A lot of that is tied to sports, right? So we've been talking a little bit about also the way that we approach the rentals. And so
Absolutely.
we take in vendors, we are not really tied to we don't really have a stake necessarily in the success of the program because we're sort of just providing the space and that's it. I'm wondering if there was more staff availability to handhold a little bit. There are so many, like as a mom of 2 toddlers,
Sure.
like there are so many events and things in this county where there are waiting lists where, like the music classes, they fill up. Thrive Gym is packed every single time I go, either to the Paso or the Atascadero location, right? Because there's a ton of people who are looking for places and things to do with their littles. And I think that the fact that they're filling up speaks to the demand and then the lack of supply. And so I would like us to think a little bit creatively outside of organized sports about things like that. Just as an example of what other things are we not able to pursue due to the limitation of staff resources and time, right? All of the other things that we're not able to explore or support because we've made the investments that we've made to support these programs, which are worthwhile, but is there a way to infuse more volunteer support to lean on TRF or something else like
Absolutely.
that so that we free up a little bit so we can get an accurate assessment about what the needs and the wants of the community really are, because you really don't know until people walk through your door and your class is full what exactly the demand really is.
Sure.
Because
Yeah, I know I would love to run community classes. I would absolutely love to. A lot of the concern with that is not necessarily rec department staff capacity, right? But it's TCSD staff capacity, like as a whole, right? So some of the issues that we've heard with doing that is the management of the funding, the payments, right? And having to track all of that and then write the checks to the instructor based on the 70-30 split and who's paid and who's not. So tracking class rosters and things, that's not necessarily been a popular idea. And so we fall back on the rental idea as a way of doing it. And again, that means it's more hands-off, right? And it also means people approach us, right? As opposed to us approaching people about what their class could be, right? But I know that there are a ton of classes that we could host, specifically during the daytime, right? At the community center, if we were able to have sort of a different accounting model in a sense, right? But a lot of contract class instructors are not interested in paying us rent, right? They're interested in us, doing for them what Paso or Atascadero can do for them.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's something that could be managed. I mean, I have all the resources for that, so.
Yeah, and the decision to go away from that model came before I got here, so I don't have firsthand knowledge of what went so wrong.
Right.
Because that is what is used, because commonly, the sort of shared risk concept is commonly utilized, commonly used. So, no, commonly used today, just not here.
Just not here,
Yeah.
Like, do you? I
in the
mean,
eighties too. But then it was like cash or.
I know
Yeah.
that we are, brushing up on time and I wanna be brief, but I would be interested, Mel, in your conversations with your partners around the county, like, who offer classes. How quickly are some of them filling up? Do they have waiting lists? And, for instance, I just called last week, just as an example, Little Acorns is the, kids group at the Slow Botanical Garden. They are completely closed for summer and they have a waiting list of 15 kids. We have a garden, we could be doing something very similar.
I mean, even with the community center, I know like you mentioned that you had senior program, well, yeah, that's, it was, I think on Fridays where you have a
That
program.
one was monthly, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I know there's like some older ladies that I've talked to that like, they go to Paso Robles and they just meet up and play bridge in the
Yeah.
senior center there, or I went there once and they have like puzzles set up, the table set up with
Yeah.
puzzles on and people just go in. So, I mean, if we have opening during the day, why don't we just open up the door and I don't know what they do, who if somebody
Yeah,
manages
Yeah,
them or
that,
not, but.
something that's possible, one of the risks is it's not a staff facility. There's
Right.
nobody there. It's not attached to one of our buildings, and so like,
So
so
that's
yeah,
probably
that's
that
the-
becomes a limitation where
you need to, if
You
you,
need to have
you could have
staff
open
there.
hours, and
Yeah.
but you still have to have somebody there. You still wanna have just to call
So, like,
911 in
you know,
case of emergency or.
So like you have, I don't know how many days or times a week you need to do that, but maybe like a couple of times, 2 or 3 times a week, be there 4 hours a week, each time and let the building, let it get used. So I don't know, so I mean, so that's what maybe you're implying is like, there are other stuff that possibly could be
Yeah, I
done,
think what
but-
I'm hearing is that maybe a future agenda item, to talk about, okay, let's do like a compare and contrast on community classes and and maybe bring Natalie, who's our finance officer. I think that, again, I don't wanna speak for the challenges of the past. Why we went away from this sort of shared split, cause it's not 100%, we still do that, I believe, for like our scoot camp and
Just
skate
scoot and
camp,
skate
it's
camp,
just kind of where there's
Just
there's some cost sharing kind of thing, or a risk sharing concept. But because we certainly do have, you're right, we have the space at the community center to have more stuff being offered there. With, no doubt about it. But just before you leave this topic, just real quickly, we talked about our programs and this was specifically on soccer. I wanna make sure there's a lot of other youth sports, youth recreation, organized youth sports in Templeton that is not directly affiliated with TCSD. So Templeton Youth Baseball is an activity that takes place in Templeton, follows the Cal Ripken program model, and is 100% volunteer ran. Templeton Youth Football, Templeton Youth Cheer, I'm sure I'm missing some other.
It's really those, I think 805 lacrosse, but that's not just Templeton, so,
We have a team here though, is there a team at Templeton?
no, there's a
Okay.
North County team.
So there are programs that exist that are not under our purview directly. I'll also note that they've struggled, and in the case of baseball, it wasn't but just a couple years ago, asking us to take over this part, because it's the administrative component that becomes a burden. Because those are administrative tasks, they're not the fun tasks, they're not the coaching your kids and running and playing catch. It's the dealing with insurance and the claims and the registration and those kinds of things, and the agreements for the facilities that become burdensome. I guess all of it becomes burdensome, but becomes sort of the administrative roles that they look to, that we do for our programs that they wanna try to eliminate. So if anything, we've had other programs wanting to fall under the TCSD umbrella as opposed to leave the TCSD umbrella.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, makes sense, but we can't necessarily continue our prices are already the highest, which speaks to the services that kids are getting in the access, but potentially at a certain point, even those high registration fees are not sustainable. We need to raise them.
I've noticed that too, we're the highest, and why are we the highest?
Well, I think
Well,
we know
yeah.
why we're the highest.
Yeah,
It
'cause we're-
sounds like we're organized and successful, but
get the most people.
Because we can.
Right, and people are coming to us, which is great, but at the same time, what is the ceiling on registration? In order to be sustainable versus now we're deterring people.
Well, and some of that was like, certainly the out of district registration fee was intended to serve as a deterrent.
Right.
But we're essentially hitting our capacity.
Yeah.
And, in some cases, and so we don't wanna make it easier for people who really can recreate elsewhere to come here.
Right, exactly.
We wanna, the primary goal is to recreate our own kids.
Yeah.
But, recognizing that we have this very unique arrangement with the school district, where you have this school district that's a big attraction from outside areas.
Yeah.
It's not an equal, it's not, same number of kids aren't going from Templeton to Atascadero, it's coming here.
Next item is referee abuse policy.
This is actually a really cool thing, and I'm pumped that they're doing it. So, the US Soccer, has created a new referee abuse, sort of penalty matrix, for offenses against referees. So it's historically, for years now, physically attacking a referee is a felony. And so, and for a reason. But what is happening nationally is for all sports, it is harder and harder to find game officials, right? People to officiate the games, because everyone is just sick of taking it from parents who are, insulting and belittling and taunting. And on top of that, when we look at youth soccer specifically, the people they are doing this to are also children, right? So when we don't have the sort of training grounds for the grassroots program to move these referees up into higher levels, they start to suffer at the big leagues, right? Because nobody's being trained at the younger levels. So it's a vicious cycle. And so US soccer, period, not just youth soccer, has implemented these as of March, for offenses against referees. And they're, varying degrees, right? They're raising from, this is probably the best little model here for non-physical offenses. And they impose mandatory bans, mandatory minimums of, games lost, right? So.
It's lost for the parent.
For the parents, exactly. So there already are, there's already sort of a system in place if a coach or a player is misbehaving in any of these ways. Yellow cards and red cards are a thing, and we use them. And if you get 2 yellow cards in a single game, it results in a red card. You miss the rest of that game and the next game. Same for coaches. And in the youth levels, we were talking about how we interleague play. We all talk about this stuff, right? There's like a email that goes out. We've had a coach kicked off a field in Templeton just last year or 2 years ago. And I made sure that Los Osos knew that when he came to his next game, that coach was not gonna be there, right? And do not let him coach. And he knew that he was not allowed to be there. So he actually called to apologize later that day, but that's part of the problem, right? Is everybody gets so heated in the midst of a game for children that literally doesn't matter. There's the penalties matrix, and it's a pretty cool thing. It's really nice to have the backing of US Soccer. This is for youth and amateur level games. It's not, I don't think it's being implemented anywhere else because there are other sort of deterrents when we get into the higher levels of play, like they will dock your pay or they will not play you. But at the youth levels where we have these, and amateur levels where we have these sort of mandatory participation numbers, mandatory amounts of playtime, right? They're saying that we can do other things to these adults that are acting like knuckleheads. On top of that, typically, I will say from experience, the adults that are screaming about a call are usually wrong about what they're screaming about. So, which is really nice. If you're gonna make a fool out of yourself, you should actually know what you're talking about. So if physical offenses, we don't often see. I will be very honest about that. I have seen it once or twice, and it's typically from a kid who's going to a referee and kind of like, you know, shouldering them on the way by, right? Sit them down. These are usually at the middle school and high school levels. We did have a game a couple of years ago in San Luis, actually, with our high school boys team where there was a bench clearing melee on the field. So, and it was caused by one player in particular from the San Luis Obispo team, that was, you know, banned, but our coach was there, this poor guy, he's huge too, he's the high school coach now. He was like picking kids off of each other, these high school boys throwing them off of it, it was awful. But what we typically see are gonna be the non-physical offenses, right? The things where they're being like harassing and intimidating, they're walking onto the field with their finger raised or getting really close. One of the things I would like to do is model, other sports, after this sort of, matrix, right? Because this happens everywhere, it's not just soccer, right? The worst is in softball, interesting, we just had at an all-star tournament in Paso Robles, we just had 5 coaches removed from, and it's an all-star tournament, so these coaches were from Nipomo and Santa Maria. We had 5 coaches banned for the year and 4 other additional parents that were kicked out of a game. The game ended up being called as a championship game. It ended up being called a forfeit because of the behavior of one particular team. And it was an 8U game. They were 8-year-olds. So, yeah, it's fantastic. Thankfully, that's not happening here and those teams are not allowed to come here because I'm in charge. So, so moving on, this is basically the idea. There's a whole lot of information here. This can all be, you know, this is a situation where we can put out to the coaches and put the new soccer logo on here to make sure everybody knows what's going on. It's a long policy, but the best part is, again, in this little section here of what the sort of punishments are. My favorite part about it, again, is that there is a mandatory minimum of a 2-game suspension if you act like this. So we are working hard to spread this information to, you know, the parents, the coaches, the players. Players typically aren't the issue, it's usually the adults around us. And the soccer board is a big fan of all of this, so they want to create big flyers and banners and make sure they're posted up at all the locations that we play at so that the parents know that it's moving into a bit of a zero tolerance policy.
Who keeps track of the, like, would it be up to the coach to then record or the offense or?
Honestly, I would expect the referees to tell us, right? They're on staff, right? So in addition, you know, it's a bit difficult, I'll be honest. When
how
we're
do they
talking about referees, they're on staff, right? So there is an element of like, TCSD can protect you, right? If you're actually, you know, you're being accosted this way. And John or I or Bree or a soccer board member we are all over the place on game days, right? And we know which games are going to be difficult just based on the adults involved, right? So we make, you know, arrangements to have sort of a presence there. But it would be the referees themselves. They have no problem telling us when they have had a difficult situation. A lot of our referees too, especially the younger ones or the less experienced ones, their parents come and watch, right? So we would have a direct line there as well. Yeah.
Do you have an issue ever getting, like the parent or the adult of who's the offender's name?
No.
Okay.
We usually know. I will tell you honestly, someone calls and says, oh, we were playing the purple team, right? And this one guy, oh my gosh. And I was like, I can usually, or John or one of us can usually, okay, it's the purple team. Let me look at a roster. Oh, I know who it was. Cause it's typically you know, a known offender, right? On occasion, it'll be more difficult because it'll be like a grandparent.
Right,
That's
yeah,
just
that's-
grandparents, right? But most people are, if it has gotten to something like this, most families specifically are pretty, they don't like seeing this, right? And they don't like seeing a 15-year-old being accosted by some adult who doesn't know what they're talking about. Or even if they do know what they're talking about, you can be right and still be wrong. So most people are like, oh no, it's Johnny's grandpa, right? He's always like that, but this time he took an extra step, right? And so we will just go take care of that.
Got it. Cool.
So will this be communicated, I guess, to the parents upon enrollment or when they?
Yes, this
That's really
is. I'm sorry,
ahead of time, kind of
Yeah.
like, you know, before the games even start, this is the, you know, this is the rules of the land this year, so if you're one of those people who has a bad temper or likes to, you know, thinks it's funny to
Heckle
heckle
a
a
child.
yeah, heckle the ref.
Yes, so when you register, this is part of what you receive in, your confirmation email, is the referee abuse prevention. It's a single page, we didn't send them the entire policy, but the single page. And then the coaches will receive this in their, packets as a reminder to talk to the families on their teams. It's posted on the website, yeah, it's posted on the website, and then it'll be discussed, so,
It would never fly in Europe.
what's that?
It would never fly in Europe.
You know, what's interesting is that's part of why they're doing it in, the US is one of the things, I don't know if you watch soccer on TV, but when the ref makes a call that nobody likes and they get surrounded by all these grown people, right? That should be, you know, a cardable offense. You're not allowed to come up to me like that. Only the captain is allowed to do that, right? Part of the problem is the referee's not enforcing the rules, and so, you know, give an inch, they take a mile kind of idea, right? So we're starting to see some of it over there too, which is really interesting. But if we can't get anybody to referee games, you know, if we're moving into robots in the MLB, right? So
AI.
robots can't do soccer, right? It's just too much free flow for that.
Yeah.
Can't do basketball, right? So all they can tell is where that ball came in at 104 miles an hour, so. Yeah, so that's kind of the point, because it's a bit of a change to policy. I mean, yeah, I don't anticipate anyone getting a physical offense. The last time we had someone putting hands on anybody, it was a coach that kind of, Ken, actually, it wasn't Ken who did it. He got kind of hit in the chest a little bit by somebody who didn't like what he was saying, so,
Well, no, I mean, I think it's great to have this out there, so
yeah.
people know what the expectation is. So thank you for doing this. Appreciate that. Any questions? All right, programs update, the fun stuff.
Still neat. Hey, look, we have a beer run coming up. This will be fast, because we've talked about most of this already. Beer run tomorrow. I get to work at 5 AM, but it's at Barrel House, and it'll be a great time. As of today, nope, as of yesterday, I think there were 228 runners, and so we expect to hit about 250, maybe more, when all is said and done. Last year, I think it was about 270, so we're right on target. It is a busy day. It's like San Luis Obispo Pride is happening. The Firestone Invitational is happening. I think that's part of the draw, is we get some people from out of town that are coming to Firestone Invitational, which doesn't start until like noon, and so they come and get a run in and grab a quick beer and off they go. So anyway, we got the foundation working. We've got a ton of volunteers coming out. It's gonna be a really good time, so wahoo, beer run. Concerts in the Park starts June 11th. It's gonna be a great time. Petty Party opens it up. Hopefully it's not cold this year. It's been cold the last 3 years or so. It was freezing last year. So hopefully we have nice weather for the opener. Should be a good time. We go for, what is that, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 10 concerts, because there's no concert the second week of the fair. It's usually really poorly attended, and so a few years ago, we decided to cancel it. It's just a waste of time. And then it is, flag football starts next week. We have practices starting June 9th, whenever Monday after school gets out. And then games start that Friday, the 13th. It's a good time. We have,
Is that co-ed?
it is gender specific this year. So we're working toward building all girls teams. They will be playing against boys teams, and against each other. So, most of them are pretty excited about playing against the boys and beating them. Flag football is an interesting sport where the general athleticism is what's needed for it, right? You don't have to be bigger and stronger.
Nice, yeah.
So it's gonna be pretty cool. Height will matter, but up until about 7th and 8th grade, you know,
Yeah.
Agility.
height will matter. So, which is pretty cool. So, and we have 2 girls teams in every division. And they are at capacity, which is great. We actually have girls on the wait list that I'm hoping we can place. So, and I think we've got something like 40 teams this year, and about 315 players, I think is what it was last.
How many?
315. So, and it's been interesting because we usually build 3 fields over at Evers, where we have lights, and 2 at German Park. So we're gonna build 2 at German Park, but Evers is closed until July 4th. So we're using Vineyard, the upper play area at Vineyard, like adjacent to the school, or on the school level. Then we're gonna build 2 fields down at the lower, in the athletic complex down there, so. Yeah. Also, next weekend, we have a big all-star tournament for softball happening. Evers is closed, so we're not using that, but we'll be playing at Colony Park in Atascadero and using 3 fields at Vineyard Elementary to run that. We've got 26 teams coming out, so it should be great. And it's time to register for soccer. I feel like we've talked enough about soccer at this point. So, what else is happening? Scoot and skate camp you saw, we've got art classes coming up. And that's about what I got. I don't have a specific date yet, but we've got some senior activity, the senior internet safety course coming up too, so. That's what I have for a program update. If you have any questions?
Any questions? Any questions? Awesome, thank you. Future agenda items? Any items we can talk about?
I kind of flagged the kind of questions about community classes and how they're structured, and I think we could maybe build a little
Yeah.
comparison about, maybe look at a catalog from some of the neighboring places and then also do a little comparison about how it's done, and I would make sure Natalie could participate and you could hear more firsthand history about what was the challenges that we had with.
You can also consider other programs.
Yeah, could we pick another, sports to get the same sort of breakdown? Well, I mean, I don't know how much time it took, so that's why I was gonna ask for one.
Soccer's pretty easy. Some of the other ones, softball will be easy too.
So we run soccer, as far as the main youth sports
Yeah.
programs, soccer,
But in terms of getting the information from the other.
yeah, but if it's with, those are the ones that would be like softball
If
and
we run
basketball.
them, we know them.
Yeah,
Okay.
softball, basketball is
Yeah.
easy, flag football's less
Flag
common.
will be less because we don't do any interleague, but Morro Bay runs a program, so I can talk to Kenny over there.
So, but maybe you wanted to see basketball and softball, those are,
And the other, this is an separate issue, but at some point, I would love to understand a little bit more about TRF's structure and the partnership that happens. And this came up a little bit in the finance and admin meeting when we were looking at the funds that we have received last year and the year before about that fluctuating amount from fundraisers from TRF. And so I'd like to understand a little bit more about their structure and see if there are ways that we can strengthen the collaboration either between the board and TRF or just understand.
would you want to see if someone from TRF could
Yeah.
come and speak to you directly?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay, and I just, not to hijack this topic, but we're not very far removed from a divorce, that's a bad word, but that's kind of
Yeah.
what happened. TRF was actually formed by the district,
Okay,
and then for a number of reasons, they wanted to become more independent from the district, and so they became their own independent organization just maybe 3-4 years ago.
yeah, that's what I've gotten the sense of.
I don't,
It just-
divorce is a bad term,
Well, it's
more
just
independent.
very strange that they are separate and yet their main priority, their main mission is to support a TCSD department. Like,
Yeah, I think part of